Hey guys, Maniac here with GameAccess.net doing my next site podcast. Inspired by the fact that Lollipop Chainsaw just came out for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, I decided to spend this podcast talking about probably what is my favorite series on the Nintendo Wii, which was directed by the same guy that directed Killer 7, Lollipop Chainsaw. The guy's name is Suda51. And he did this series for the Wii, which I absolutely love, and it's called No More Heroes. Now, I think probably I first became aware of No More Heroes around the time that it just came out. I wasn't familiar with it during its development or anything like that. And I remembered probably around the time that I actually got my Nintendo Wii was probably April 2008. What had happened was that I hadn't seen Nintendo Wii's on shelves at all. Nintendo Wii came out around November 2006, and for at least probably 2 years, 2+ years, you could not find any. You couldn't find any on the shelves. You just couldn't, and that was unusual. And by that point, 2 years later, I was cracking jokes with some of the clerks and stuff like that, saying, "Oh, you mean the Nintendo Wii actually exists? It's not something that was made up by a bunch of people that decided to come up with some kind of urban legend or something about this, new Nintendo console or something, because I've never seen one. I've certainly never seen one on a shelf. I'd love to buy one, but I don't even think they exist." And I was just shooting the breeze with the guy, and he said, "Oh no, we got some in the back if you want one." I said, "Seriously?" He's like, "Yeah, we got a whole bunch in the back. If you want one, you can just tell me. I'll bring out one and I'll sell it to you." It's like, "Well, why aren't they on the shelves?" He's like, "Oh, we haven't put them on the shelves yet. That's all." Okay. He's like, "Okay." So I picked one up. And after that, I had a list. I must have had a list of like 5+ games, most of them made by Nintendo, that I absolutely had to get. If I was going to get a Nintendo Wii, there were some things I just absolutely knew I had to get with it. There was the regular staple of games, of course. Metroid Prime 3 I had to get. Mario Galaxy I had to get, Super Smash Brothers I had to get, Zelda Twilight Princess I had to get. So basically, like, that initial list was like no big surprises to anybody. But then, when Twitch found out that I had a Nintendo Wii, he recommended to me, and he wouldn't not let me get this. He just wouldn't let me not have this. He said I had to pick up No More Heroes. And I said, "Why?" He says, "This game is probably going to be a cult classic very soon. It's a really interesting game. It's really funny. It's really good for the Nintendo Wii. It's designed specifically for the Wii. It's not selling well," he said. It's already, they already lowered the price to like $30. And I'm going to say, $30? That's not exactly a low price. $30 was bargain bin prices for games back then. In 2008, that generation was still relatively new, and when a game hit the bargain bin, it was at $30. The bargain bins were $30. Now, because the generation is so long in the tooth, these games are hitting $40 after about 2 or 3 weeks. A month if it's popular. But at the time, there wasn't a lot of product, and because of that, all the games were staying at their premium prices for quite a while. And so I was thinking a lot about it, and I decided, okay, I'll pick it up. Because I thought it was going to be a pretty rare game, and the truth is, I was right to pick it up at the time because it's a good game. And I didn't play it immediately. I was more caught up in playing other Wii games and stuff like that at the time. But I was interested based upon the premise. I had seen some of the previews for it. I thought it was interesting. The basic premise of the game, I'm going to just break it down for you guys, is that you play as a character named Travis Touchdown, who's an otaku living in Southern California. It's a fictional city called Santa Destroy. It's on the border of Mexico. It's coastal city. It's absolutely, and he gets himself a lightsaber. It's called the Bean Saber in the game, probably for legal reasons, and he decides he's going to become the best assassin in the world. And basically, in order to become the best assassin under these game's rules, you basically join this organization of assassins, and you kill all the assassins above you until you become number one. Kind of interesting. Usually you think the best assassin in the world doesn't kill other assassins, they kill targets or earn a lot of money, but actually these rules are different. It had a very interesting style to it. and it appealed to me quite a bit. For people who probably had their style like attracted to like movies like Scott Pilgrim and stuff like that, it probably appealed to me in that respect. I hadn't seen Scott Pilgrim at the time. I think this predated the Scott Pilgrim movie, but it reminded me a lot of that. It had 8-bit life bars. It had status things like that. It was, it kind of to me felt like that Suda51 was going for a reference to the fact that he was playing this on, this game was intended for a Nintendo console. So because of that, here you had these 8-bit nods and stuff like that. On top of that, this guy is an otaku. He's got like all this otaku clothing and everything else. He's a big fan of Japanese anime, Japanese clothing. If you see, throughout the game, he basically gets all these, T-shirts and jackets and belts and things like that, pants and everything else. And it was interesting in that respect. He also, like when you see his room, he's got like, he's got a Nintendo 64 in the background. He has these figurines up. He reminded me a lot of a friend of mine. He reminded me a lot about a friend of mine because I had a friend of mine that actually very much was like that. I have a friend who is an otaku. In fact, since I've known him, I've always called him Otakon. And there was some talk this year that we were going to go down to Otakon, the actual Otakon, the Otaku convention in Baltimore, but he had to pull out at the last minute, and so I can't go, which was really unfortunate because I was really looking forward to that trip. But we were talking about it for quite a bit, and I told him, dude, this is practically a game about you. And the only difference being that he had a cat, and my friend didn't have a cat, but now my friend has a cat, so that's kind of funny. So when I finally started playing the game, I was immediately drawn into the world, and that was for many reasons. One, the character I really liked the character a lot. I really liked the gameplay a lot. Using a beam saber with a Wiimote and nunchuck was absolutely perfect, and Suda51 really worked in a lot of stuff about that, like when he ever gets a cell phone call. The cell phone call comes out of the speaker in the Wiimote speaker, so you can, like, when he holds up his phone to his ear, you can hold up the Wiimote to your ear, basically. And I really thought that was a nice touch. Also, it made, lightsaber, the beam saber sound effects and stuff like that coming out of it, so you felt like you had the saber in your hand. Other things that were really interesting were like, I thought the storyline was really good. I thought the art style was really good. I really liked how they set up all of the assassins, how all the assassins had their own styles. What was my favorite assassin out of the whole group? Trying to think about which one was my favorite. I know I'm probably going to say, well, if I say it right now, it's probably going to change later on. I think Holly on the beach fight was probably my favorite. And that I think was ranked number 6. I also liked, I think probably the baseball fight against number 10. Number 9. And the reason why was probably because here you are fighting in a baseball stadium, and it was fun. It was fun. And he was like the one, I thought, he was the one assassin that they set up a plot line for. Here was a guy, I can't remember his name, Dr. Peace. Yeah, Dr. Peace. And he was an assassin that was designed. He had this wife and everything else. His estranged daughter, an ex-wife. He was a terrible guy. He was trying to live up all of his, he was trying to live up his bad life. And I thought it was, I thought he was, out of the whole group, I thought he was probably, out of all the stock assassins of the group, I thought he was probably the most explained. Like, his story was the most explained. There were other ones that, you basically had the moments before and after the fight to deal with, like Destroy Man and stuff like that. Or Holly, like that. And there's just no, and that you basically got those moments, and you can get something out of that from that. But I thought Dr. Peace had the most out of it. I thought that worked really well, and I liked that battle a lot. So take that what you will. As the game progressed and things like that, I had to say I really was a fan of the story. As we get through the story, basically, things just don't seem like they are. And I kind of thought that Travis worked really well under those conditions. Here he is being put in all these situations, and he's acting like I would act in those situations. I mean, here's a guy who has no problem screaming at expletives as he beheads a guy who tries to kill him. Or here's a guy that basically watches learns new moves by renting videotapes and never returning them. Or, wrestling moves and stuff like that. Or, well, Lord only knows, based upon the videotapes he doesn't return, or returns incorrectly. Lord knows what kind of moves he's getting from those tapes. And also there was the fact that you had to save on toilets, and each individual, especially with the ranking boss fights, the toilets got more and more interesting looking. And I thought that was kind of funny because that was a reference. In fact, I actually wrote a whole article about it, and you can look it up on my site. And the article is literally titled, "What's with Japanese People in Toilets?" Because this wasn't the first game I was aware of that actually had saving in a bathroom. Dead Rising also had saves in a bathroom. And I was thinking, okay, what's with that connection? Because when I started doing video training and stuff like that when I was in college, we were told quite specifically we want nothing bathroom related. Nothing bathroom related is allowed in any of the videos. So I kind of thought maybe they just, but then again, I went to college in the United States, so maybe that had to do with it. Maybe it's a cultural thing or something like that. But I thought that was funny. And now, of course, when, in case you're looking for an appropriate term, I need to use the bathroom can be saved by I need to save my game or something like that. I guess that can be a more appropriate term in a thing like that. I've heard terms like all the time. I mean, some are kind of gross, and I'm sure you can think of them in your head. I'm not going to say any of them. I think probably the funniest I've ever heard was I had to pay the water bill. I think that was probably a funny one when it comes down to a bathroom announcement. But that I think I need to save my game is hopefully going to be the new I need to use the bathroom appropriate term. That'd be really funny, and I advise everyone at conventions to use that term. So obviously by this point I picked up the game and I was playing it. The game was not new. It had been out for a while. By that point, there was stuff out available for it and stuff like that. Guides, information, videos, all that stuff. People were talking about it. People actually, especially in the United States, there was talk going on in the game, at least with the game series, was that here was a game developed for Japanese audiences, and it didn't do too well in Japan. In fact, actually, they didn't think it was doing too well in the United States either. And a lot of people were thinking to themselves, "Oh, it's not doing well in the United States. It's not doing well in Japan. It's probably because it's on the Wii, which is usually a game that's, a platform that's only good for Nintendo, and that's going to be about it. Third parties aren't going to do too well on it." And that was, I thought, the general idea about it. So as I'm playing the game, I'm thinking to myself, there's no way this game will ever have a sequel. So I'm thinking, play this game and enjoy it now, Maniac, because, there's no way that this is ever going to get a sequel. In fact, that's what Twitch told me. When I picked it up, he's like, pick this up right now because they're probably never going to reprint it, and it's probably never going to get a sequel. So pick it up right now. And I basically did it on that, thinking that this was going to be another game series like Anachronox or something like that, which is going to be a one-off game and never get any more. And I was getting sadder and sadder the more I played and the more I enjoyed playing the game. I actually remember spending some late nights just hanging around the hub of Sand and Destroy, having a blast, because I used to live in California, and they matched up, even with the Wii's limitations and everything else, graphically, the art style and the visual style of Sand and Destroy just brought me back to that year that I spent in California. Just like, oh my God, it felt so right. Just how I used to just hang out over there and what it looked like and what the style was. And I got to credit them for that. I thought it was a very, very well-encompassing world. And that to me is just a mark of a well-made, fun game. I hadn't seen games made that well or had brought me so close into a game's world, especially not in like Southern California game world, since like I played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. That was another game that really brought me back to that year. Of course, I did play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines shortly after leaving California and returning back to where I currently live. So that was kind of, so that there was that. But No More Heroes was, I played that 7 years after, well, 5 or 6 years after leaving California, and it really did bring me back, I thought. So there you have that. As I'm playing it, I'm really enjoying it. And then it was just when it got to the game's midpoint where you thought he was going to fight Dr. Les Shake. I believe that was rank number 5 or assassination number 5. And there you had this scene where you're introduced to who is probably the big heavy of the game series. For the first time you get your first glimpses of him, Henry. And all I'm thinking is, that was like the funniest scene I'd ever seen. That was probably one of my favorite moments in the game itself. I don't consider that a boss fight because it was just a cutscene. It was kind of like a bit of a different fight, but in that you just it was a simple thing. But to me, the scene was just so funny watching the operator as this giant tank with a brain on it, a huge brain on it, is preparing and he's counting down like he's going to lose the barrel controls and stuff like that, and he's just counting down and Travis is running towards him with his saber, about to cut it in two, and finally it hits one, and then all of a sudden Let's Shake explodes, and you see that he wasn't destroyed by Travis, he was destroyed by someone else. And there you have it. So I continue to progress through the game, and I'm thinking at this point the game is going to probably culminate with a fight between Travis and this Henry guy. And I'm loving how this game is progressing. I mean, it's progressing really well. It's got a good pace to it. I'm loving all the side missions and everything else. Even Yahtzee at Zero Punctuation commented that the side missions were just absolutely probably the most fun part of the game that he had, because it would use the Wiimote in different types of ways. That was true. The difference being that it was just easier to do, especially when you were grinding money, it was just easier to just get assassination gigs and stuff like that, especially like one attack assassination gigs, because they were just worth more and they were faster to get to, and you could grind, because you needed to grind in the game in order to get like everything bought and unlocked and everything, like all the upgrades to the sabers and all the clothes and everything. So it just took a lot of grinding, and that was unfortunate, but there you have it. It was just easier just to go for assassination gigs, but they were still fun. They were still fun. They were still ranked. I thought the one-hit kill, the one-hit death segments in certain spots of the game were kind of annoying, especially given the fact of the controls were not very good at meriting doing something at one-hit kill, and not getting hit at something. And just didn't seem like there were major rewards to any of that, so I kind of stayed away from all of that. They would have been more fun if they were not one-hit deaths. If they had just simply been like, regular missions or side missions or something, just for money or grinding purposes. The card collectibles and stuff like that on the New Game Plus was a lot of fun. The unlockables for the finding of ball, I can't remember what the Lavakov balls or whatever they were, was a lot of fun also. It was just such a fun world to just be messing around in, finding all the special shirts and finding all of that. That was just awesome, as well as all the playing cards and the missions and stuff. I mean, when you had the open world, I thought that was kind of fun. A lot of people complained about the open world in the first game because there wasn't a lot to do, but yeah, I really have no complaints about that. I really wish that people hadn't complained about it because they cut it out in the second game, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, what happened? Well, I finally made it to the last two, eventually got a point where after a couple nights, I was finally staying up late and getting through the game. And I got to a point where I knew I was really close to beating it. I think I got up to like rank 2 or rank 1, or I was at the rank 1 boss battle or something. And at that point, you start really thinking heavily about what's going on, because here you had this organization and its main representative was this woman named Sylvia Crystal, who had been there for pretty much all the fights. And the major plot of the game, the major objective of the game is like, he wants to get rank number 1, and he assumes, and she kind of says, yeah. And she's been using this for him. It's like, yeah, she'll sleep with him if he makes the rank 1. So that's his motivation. It's more than just being the best. He wanted to be the best, but it's also, he wants to have sex with this beautiful woman. We get it. It's like, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, that's just going to, cater to the entire demographic or something, like the entire gamer demographic. Yeah, but if that was true, then every game would be that, or every game would be like that. And the truth is like, no, most games are not like that. I mean, very few games actually involve sex in these games, and if they do, it's usually, even in God of War, for example, it had nudity, but every time there was a sex scene, it just kind of panned away or something. So, it was intended for a leveling feature as kind of a joke, but never as an actual plot point. Usually it's just, they just tune up the violence and stuff like that. So the game was willing to go there. And that was, I thought, a really, really cool, nice twist. And, to be perfectly honest, highly plausible. I mean, the whole, if you had this whole organization or something like that, if he was being offered that, he would be motivated, certainly. So in that case. So you get to the end, and I'm going to spoil this for you guys. Well, I've been spoiling the game throughout the most part. So my advice is if you haven't played this game, just shut off this right now and don't listen to it until after you play the game. If you have no intention of playing it, that's fine, because I'm going to kind of spoil towards the end. What he finds out towards the end is he gets a call from Sylvia's mother, or someone claiming to be Sylvia's mother, telling him that he's been duped and that the organization is a fraud. And he's just thinking to himself, and you have this whole crisis, then who have I been killing? If the organization is a complete sham or fraud that's been set up by Sylvia and who knows who else, then who are these people that I've been killing and getting money for and everything else? I mean, it may be a fraudulent organization, but it seems to be a really well-funded and a fraudulent organization or something like that. I have been getting money for these kills. I have been paying money into these organizations, and it seems to do all this stuff for setting up this stuff. So, yeah, for a fraudulent organization, it really did seem to have all of its books in order, basically. So that was kind of interesting. And then you get this whole... Then you finally get to the final battle. And the final battle is not with who we thought it was. The final battle was supposed to be with rank number 1, who was this really badass guy called Darkstar, I think. And the battle wasn't with him. He was, he gets killed immediately by... Leon. And that's basically like, and then she basically explains the whole history of the organization, everything else. Like she's his half sister, and that they had the same father. And she goes into this whole spiel, which had to be fast forwarded to prevent the rating from going to AO, I think. And they did a nice little Duke Nukem Forever joke there. I thought that was really funny. It's like, it'll change the rating if I tell you the story. You want this to be No More Heroes Forever? And I thought that was a great nod. And it might delay the game, basically. I thought that was really funny. So what happened was, eventually, it explained that she met up with Sylvia, and they set up the fights and everything else. And now she wanted to kill Travis. And he realized that the night that he met Sylvia for the first time, he had been drunk, and he had been mumbling about his past he couldn't remember, or something that he had repressed or something. And Sylvia preyed on that. So it was very interesting. Sylvia does not come to congratulate him at the end of defeating Leon. I'm sorry, Jean, not Leon, Jean. But she is there in the background, not saying anything. She did watch the fight. But she didn't confront Travis at the very end with anything. And at the very end of the fight, depending upon which ending you get, I got the true ending. And I can't remember now off the top of my head what got the true ending or not. I think it was you had to collect everything and unlock everything to get the true ending. There were two endings. One was a true ending, one was a not true ending. And they both started off the same way, where Travis is on the toilet, again, probably saving his game. And a guy comes in, probably ranked number 2, to try to kill him. And in the not true ending, we assume that Travis is killed. But in the true ending, someone slices him down. It's the same person that sliced down Let's Shake, Henry. And in a fantastic display at the end of the game, Travis finally is like, okay, I don't know who the heck you are, but I'm taking you down right now because you mess with my fights, you're messing with all this stuff. I don't know who you are, but I don't like you. I'm taking you out. And they have this whole battle. And he's probably the hardest fight in the game. I think probably Jean was probably... Well, actually, no, I take it back. He was probably the second hardest. Jean was probably the hardest, even on the lowest difficulty. And... because he's moving around a lot. And as did Jean. Jean probably moved around a lot more. And what happened was... Actually, no, I take it back. He had a one-hit kill. He had a one-hit kill attack, which sucked. And because he started using that towards like the end of his life meter. So he had to make sure that he did not use it. And so at the end, he basically explains... I'm Sylvia's husband. She's my wife. Sorry, but my wife can't be with you and everything else. It's like, I don't want her to be with me. She's with me. She's not going to be with you. And also that I'm your brother and everything else. And he starts going on about this. And for a game that was relatively straightforward, I thought, got really, really, really existential really, really, really quickly towards the end. Got really crazy, almost like Clone Saga type crazy, where it was like, questions on top of questions on top of questions, even in the true ending. Probably the true ending probably opened up more questions than it probably answered. And at the very end, we don't know exactly how this fight ended. We just see that they're leaping at each other, and the game ends, and the credits start rolling, and you see Sylvia with a young girl named Jean. And they kind of walk away. And it's like, because Jean is looking at the painting, like it just showed like the freeze frame was a painting of the two of them battling. And he was like, what the heck? Am I going to see oh my God, I really want a sequel right now. And it does this Back to the Future type to be continued, and I think that even Sylvia comes back and it's like, sorry, there's not going to be a sequel or something like that. And I'm just thinking, no freaking way! You can't end the game like this. And again, like I said, I was going into it thinking that the game was a flop and it wasn't going to come back and they weren't going to do a sequel. And I was bummed out because the game was really good, but the ending just kind of had so many dangling plot threads. I didn't know what to think. The very next day, the sequel was announced. I could not make that up. I am not joking. I am not lying. I am not exaggerating. The very next day, the sequel was announced. I think it was at Gamescom or something like that. No, or GDC or something. I don't think they had announced the sequel at PAX. I think it was at another organization. It wasn't E3 either. And they showed the first trailer for it, for No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle. And it didn't show a lot, except it did show Travis fighting again and getting back into the rankings. And all I was thinking was, I can't believe the coincidence. I just could not believe the coincidence that after I had beaten the game, the day after a sequel was announced. I couldn't believe it. And so all this stuff was going on, and I was glued. I was absolutely glued to the development cycle of that game. Just glued to it. I was checking up every tidbit that I possibly could, because as someone who had played through the first game, I wanted to know how this ended, and it looked like this sequel was going to end this. Was going to show what was going on and how things were going on. And it's like you saw, Sylvia's back, and Travis is going to be fighting some new enemies, some new assassins, and everything else. All great. It's back on the Wii. New costumes, everything else, new fights, new sabers, new fighting styles, and everything else. And I'm just thinking, awesome, 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 awesome. Give me the game. Well, the game was still about a year away. Now, I want to tell a split. I don't really have too much to explain, at least for the games on the development side. But I do want to tell one quick little personal story about something that had happened in the intervening time between when No More Heroes 2 was announced and when it came out. Like it was about a year before the game came out. And what had happened was that PAX had come around, and the game was being demoed at PAX. Great, wonderful. I think they were showing one of the, probably not the first boss fight, but probably one of the early boss fights in the game. Yeah, I think it might have been the 51st or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It was the one with the it was a boss fight involving the guy. Travis was going through this mansion kind of looking place. Maybe it was a hotel, and at the very end, like fighting this rap artist and everything else, this hip hop artist. So it was that boss fight. I can't remember exactly which one he was ranked, and it. He also, he was showing off like they had doubles. He could fight with two sabers now, and just awesome. It was a pretty cool looking demo. I didn't play it because I didn't go to that PAX, but I did see the demos played after the fact, and I thought, wow, man, I can't wait for this. It's really cool. It looks like they're increasing the style. The graphics look better. It just looks really cool. It was like more No More Heroes. Couldn't possibly beat that. And I remember specifically that I think that they were pulling a No More Heroes 1 promo thing, and they were giving out branded rolls of toilet paper at PAX. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain that was happening. They did it for No More Heroes 1, but they only did it in Japan, if I remember correctly. When No More Heroes 1 came out in Japan, Studio 51 was there with a girl with a supermodel dressed up like Sylvia Crystal, and they were giving out toilet paper. And the popular story about this is that nobody came to pick up the game, really. At least that's the popular. There have been pictures, so I know that the event happened, but I don't know about its popularity. It could have been quite popular for all I know. And so at PAX, from what I was told, they were handing out rolls of toilet paper again for No More Heroes 2. And I'm thinking nothing of it. I'm just thinking, oh, that's awesome because, of course, they're bringing back the reference to saving the game and everything else. And a friend of mine, actually the unknown camera person, told me we're going to go see Carlos Mencia. Not because the unknown camera person was a fan of Carlos Mencia, actually quite the opposite. The unknown camera person was not a fan of Carlos Mencia, but was a fan of the Carlos Mencia's opener. Knew the opener personally. It's just the family thing. Was a personal family friend, I'm guessing, and invited me. So I thought, okay, and so I go see Carlos Mencia. It was the first time I ever saw Carlos Mencia. I had, of course, seen his specials and his television show and everything else. And I don't know if he's had this in a special or anything like that, but he went on this whole spiel about toilet paper. He was discussing toilet paper and how toilet paper is soft here, and you don't usually get that. And mostly it was his father's complaints about toilet paper. He's like, where I come from, we don't have these soft toilet paper and everything else. He goes, because he was kind of describing kind of how great this country is that we have all this different type of toilet paper. And some people didn't think it was very funny, like particularly on camera persons. People didn't think it was very funny. I don't know if he ever used that joke in a special or anything like that was ever televised, but it was a joke he did. And I'm laughing to myself because here I was watching him talk about toilet paper, and I was seriously even thinking about emailing the guy to tell him, yo, you won't believe this, but they were giving out toilet paper in promotion of a video game, and it was today. They did this today in Seattle. I seriously wanted to email him that. I didn't do it because, for all I know, that if I had emailed him, it probably would have offended him or something like that. But, my parents usually have always instructed me never try to contact anyone famous, because even if it's something polite, it can always be misconstrued or just the act of you contacting them, even to say something like hi, hello, is probably just not a good idea. So I thought nothing of it, and I never contacted him. But I don't know if anybody did want to tell him that, I thought it would be kind of funny. Or if he ever did know about them, maybe for all I know, somebody else might have told him that. or or emailed it, because any it was a pretty popular news story that day, at least in the gaming news circles. So after that all having been said, No More Heroes 2 does come out. It comes out I pick it up day one. I had to pick it up day one. I actually had to make the clerks go back to the back of the Best Buy because it wasn't put on shelves yet, and I made them pull it out and bring it out to me. And I popped it in the Wii. I brought it home. I popped it in the Wii because this was, I think, it came out in, if I remember correctly, January 2010, maybe. I think it came out It came out in January. I don't remember which year. I think it might have been 2010. And I remember thinking a few things. First off, they changed some of the components of the game. The graphics were better, definitely. The gameplay controls were still just the same, fluid, except now Travis had access to dual beam sabers, so that was something different. They changed that up a bit. Well, first off, there was less upgrades in the game. There was a lot less to upgrade. But that because of that, upgrades costed more. Except nothing cost exorbitantly high, but because there were fewer upgrades and fewer extra sabers, and some of the sabers actually were not upgradable. You would get those immediately and stuff. So it was interesting in that respect. Fewer collectibles, a lot fewer collectibles. If really at any collectibles, I can't even remember any collectibles really. And there was no open world aspect anymore. Because I remember specifically when they made the announcements, a lot of the interviewers were saying, it's like, what are you going to do to play around with the open world? Because the open world is just not, in the first game was just not, it wasn't really much to do in it. They said, we'll make more to do in it. And then when the game shipped, there was no open world. In order to get around, you basically had a menu about what do you want to do next. And that, I thought, sucked. They did make it look pretty and everything else, but they took that out, and that was a real disappointment that they took out, because one thing I really liked about No More Heroes, the first No More Heroes, was the fact that they kept that open world aspect, and I really liked the art style of Sand and Destroy and everything else, and it was kind of show that, well, number one, they did upgrade Sand and Destroy, but you never went around. It also got way more existential when they were started to talk about things like portals of transportation and stuff like that, about getting around. And I kind of thought, No More Heroes seemed a bit more grounded in reality than. And for me, it came down to, I think Portals was a bit, when they started talking about Portals, it was a bit too much. But when it came down to the fact of Portals were, a way to go from one way to another, go from one spot to another. As long as you really didn't think about them that much, it was okay. And for the most part, the world was still pretty believable. The characters were pretty believable. All the characters, the characters returned. Henry returned. Shinobi returned. Travis returned. Sylvia returned. That was, I thought, really good. Destroyman returned. Some of the bosses returned, actually. They had gotten either prosthetics or, just explain what had happened. So I thought that was kind of cool. And the whole plot line was that, as you first announced it, is that Travis had basically given up for 3 years. After what had happened to Henry, he basically just walked away from it, and he let life pass by. If anybody challenged him, he wouldn't fight them. He'd just immediately admit surrender, admit defeat. And because of that, he was still alive. But his ranking was continually going down. In fact, and the UAA was becoming more and more popular, that at that point, his official rank was like the 51st or something like that. So even though he was still alive, he had lost his ranking. Everyone had basically moved up through him. Anybody that wanted to be part of it. And then someone decided to get him back into the game by assassinating the guy at the video store. And that was something to do it. That was, Travis wanted revenge. He wanted to get a piece back. He basically wanted to do that. And it was as good. It was as good as a reason as any to get Travis back in the game. I thought it was a valid reason. We never really see Travis have any friends. In fact, actually, in the previews, like it was all said, it's like, oh, he killed his only friend. Like Bishop was his only friend or something. And yeah, that was surprising. I mean, all Travis's life is he's got his cat. He had his anime videotapes and his collectibles, but really no friends. That's for what he did for money, basic odd jobs and stuff like that. It's kind of, it's like you had a cool individual, but you also had a sad individual in that respect. And the second game really played that up a bit. But he still had his attitude. He kept his attitude intact. In fact, they kept the attitude. And that was kind of the reason why I liked it so much. Was that you kept that trademark attitude from No More Heroes intact in the game. And because it extended the story, and it answered the questions that were left off by No More Heroes 2. In the end of No More Heroes 1. What happened to Henry? What happened to Sylvia? Was the UA a thing? My favorite boss fight? Yeah, definitely the mecha fight. I really liked that. I thought that was just awesome. Here you had the giant football star and all of his cheerleaders get together in a football stadium, and he just like all of a sudden gets really big and pulls out this huge becomes a giant enemy, and he's like, always thought that something like this could happen. That's why I had Dr. Naomi whip out something, and all of a sudden out of the water, like it comes out this huge robot of his own that he can fight with. And he drives his motorcycle into it, and they have a big fight. And I'm thinking, Power Rangers, totally Power Rangers, awesome. And then I think, because I remember, I think Linkara did this reference when he had this big fight when he did the Power Rangers Zeo review. He had this huge fight with, a robot version of himself fighting him and a giant robot. It was awesome. I always just like that kind of stuff. And I thought it was a nice reference to that. It was a fun fight. There were also other ones. There was a horror-themed boss, which was pretty cool. Obviously, the one that I already talked about was cool. It was a fun game overall. I don't know if I would say it was better than the first one. I would say probably just the same amount because it had its own strengths and weaknesses. The lack of open world in the second game definitely was a weakness. But its other problem was that it had a major bug in it, and they never fixed it. And plus, because Wii games really can't be patched, they couldn't fix it. And that was that some of your clothing and items that you'd purchase, and you'd go back to the store, the clothing and items would be gone. And forcing you to rebuy them. And I think it would go away if you bought everything. I'm pretty certain it would go away if you bought everything. But the problem was, as the game got further and further into the game, more and more stuff unlocked, you noticed stuff would be disappearing from your closets, and you'd have to rebuy them at the store. And that was a bug. And I reported it to Ubisoft, and they said, we have no intention of repressing the game with fixing this. So, and they had no way of patching it. So I thought that was really shifty. They basically told me just don't go shopping that much. So, yeah, there was that. If they ever fix it, or if there's some way to fix it, then just someone please post up a comment about that. But I never really replayed the game from the beginning because of that bug. What else happened? Also, they changed all the, how do I put this? They changed all the mini games and the boss, like the side missions and stuff like that from assassination attempts, like in the first game. Or I should say, like odd jobs to use a Wiimote, to little 8-bit mini games. And I thought it was cool, except for the ones that leveled up. Those, especially the one where it involved a guy throwing barbells at you, were so annoying. They were levels upon levels of annoying that I did not want to even go into. Yeah, and because like you could fail them, and that would be costing you like $100,000 or $10,000 or something like that, and you'd have to regrind that money all over again. It sucked, it sucked, but you got through it, and you could completely level them up, but it took a lot of practice on getting better at, getting good at it. So there was all that. There's also some other fun ones like grilling burgers. In fact, actually, I remember. after playing that minigame, I remember getting a steak back, because I always order steaks and I always get them cooked wrong. I always ask for a steak cooked medium, and I've very, very, very rarely gotten a steak back from even from professional steakhouses cooked properly to my specifications. I don't know why. I always get my steaks overcooked, or even in some cases undercooked. I don't know what's so bad, what's so tough about cooking a steak medium. So, I told the guy, maybe he should play this game. Maybe the chef should be playing this game just so that he'd know how to cook it properly. It's like, so after all that having been said, and all that done, you play through the game, and the cool thing was it did shift perspectives and stuff like that, so it gave more than just that. It was a longer game because you had more boss fights, you had more story being, and you were playing as different characters. You could play as Shinobi in some sequences, you could play as Henry in some sequences, you played as Travis through most of it. So yeah, there was all that. It was good. It was really, it was a fun game. And we also had that final, that they brought back Dr. Let's Shake. They had that fight where you finally did fight him. And there was a boss fight where you did fight Let's Shake in No More Heroes 2. And I think that was probably because it's like you didn't have a chance to fight him in No More Heroes 1. He got defeated so easily. He was defeated and you didn't have to even fight him. So it was a good moment where you finally got to fight him. It was good. So I think that was probably the last, if I can remember correctly. No, it wasn't the last major game I picked up on the Wii. I think that I did pick up games since then, but for the most part, that was that I think was probably the last major non-Nintendo game I picked up on the Wii. The last third-party Nintendo game I picked up on the Wii. I don't think I picked up anything else. Dead Space Extraction, I think, came out before that. So, because I remember picking up Dead Space Extraction, but that came out before No More Heroes 2 did. So, I think that was it. That was it for third party and the Nintendo Wii for me. Now, what's happened since No More Heroes 2? Well, I think the No More Heroes story is pretty much over. Suda51 and his team have pretty much shifted back to like first party titles and stuff like doing the PS3 and Xbox 360. The first No More Heroes was ported to Xbox 360 and PS3 in Japan. The PS3 version was brought over here and ported to the Wii, and that was published by Konami, not by Ubisoft. And I did get a chance to demo that on the at E3 last year, but for some odd reason, I don't know. I never picked it up on the Wii, although I did add it on my Amazon wish list. I never picked it up on the PS3 for the move because I kind of felt like. It seemed like this was a game that you just could tell its platform was supposed to be on the Wii, and playing it on a different platform just kind of felt almost sacrilegious, even though it had the better graphics. I don't know, there was just some things about it, especially after I played the demo, it just felt different. The gameplay controls were the same, but knowing that a different team worked on it and had different, the different names under the opening credits and everything else, just kind of felt like a betrayal almost. Almost like I was betraying, not they were betraying. I was betraying the game, the Suda51 for that. But, that was just my opinion. And that having been said, I haven't found the game on shelves at all since it came out. I think it came out earlier this year. I have not found it anywhere. Although you can download its demo on the PlayStation Network, as well as it does have some DLC that's for purchase. So, where do I think the series is going? I'm not going to spoil No More Heroes 2, so I'm not really going to talk about the ending of that. Needless to say, I did feel that the conclusion of No More Heroes 2 pretty much concluded the series. It did offer the closure that No More Heroes 1 left open. It did answer the questions of No More Heroes 1, at least as far as I was concerned, pretty adequately. So I don't think you could really do a No More Heroes 3 because it pretty much tied up every last loose end in the game series. If they did do a new No More Heroes game, I think Suda51 said he was probably going to wait for like an HD platform or a new Nintendo platform before he did it. Now you could say, well, does that include the Wii U? Well, possibly. I didn't watch the Nintendo press conference, so I don't know if a Suda51 game for No More Heroes was announced. But Suda51 has been working on Lollipop Chainsaw. It just recently got released, so if he does do a No More Heroes, he probably hasn't announced it yet because he was working on Lollipop Chainsaw, which, by the way, I did beat yesterday. It's a fun game. If you haven't picked that one up, give it a look. It's a lot of fun. Very much in the vein of No More Heroes. I liked its humor. I really liked its gameplay. So there was that. So after all that having been said, would I like to see a new No More Heroes game? Absolutely. What would I like to see it on? Well, the Wii's on its way out. The Wii U is coming out at the end of this year. So it's unlikely that if there is a new No More Heroes game release, it's going to come out for the Wii. It could come out on the PlayStation 3 or the Xbox 360. It could come out on the Wii U. I doubt it would come out on the PC because, for the most part, those games usually don't come out on the PC. I think that this is more of a controller-type game. And plus, the last games that the Grasshopper Manufacturer games were coming out were for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. They were not for the Wii. So, that all having been in mind, I really do hope that they do have a sequel, and I would like to see it on the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3 or even the Wii U. It'd be fine to see them on any of those consoles. Hopefully not too soon on the Wii U because I don't know if I'm getting that immediately when it comes out. So hold off on that one. If they want to release it on the PS3 or the Xbox 360, a new game, that's fine. Would like to see what's going on with Travis after all of that got resolved and what's going on with him and Sylvia. Oh, and one other thing, actually. There was a company, a lingerie company, actually, that manufactured lingerie based upon the No More Heroes 2 ladies. And I specifically remember that they were taking, at the end of it, press requests for lingerie. Had I seriously was considering actually putting a press inquiry in for that. I decided against it because I didn't have, who was going to model it, right? It's like if I was going to do a press inquiry on it, I was going to need someone to model it. I just would not have had that opportunity to have anyone model it. And I certainly wasn't going to wear it. So, there was that. Somewhere out there's No More Heroes 2 branded lingerie. So I think that's kind of funny. So that is my take on No More Heroes, guys. If you haven't played those games, if you've got a Nintendo Wii, look those games up. They're so much fun. They really are a lot of fun. Suda51, great guy. Just great game developer. I really hope he keeps making games. After Lollipop Chainsaw, certainly. So, until next time, guys, this is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Please post a comment about what you think about the podcast, and I'll talk to you guys next time. This is Maniac, over and out. Bye.